She finally looked at him, her dark eyes unreadable. "Then you must change the law, human," she said softly. "And that is impossible." Alex didn't believe in impossible things. He had fought in wars, faced death more times than he could count. He had seen humans survive against stronger, smarter enemies. The impossible was just something that hadn't been done yet. "We'll see about that," he muttered. They reached the spaceport, where Alex's small ship was docked. It wasn't much, a battered old Corsair-class transport, barely held together by repairs, but it was home. He tapped a code into the panel, and the hatch hissed open. Rayla hesitated at the entrance. "You're free to walk away," Alex told her. "But if you come inside, I promise, I will fight for your freedom." She studied him for a moment, as if searching his thoughts. Maybe she was using her Yshari telepathy to read his emotions. If she was, she would find only one truth. He meant every word. Finally, she stepped inside. Inside the ship, Alex opened a terminal and connected to the Galactic Registry database. He searched for Yshari legal status. The information that appeared made his stomach tighten. Species classification, non-sovereign. Legal status, property of previous owner, deceased. Default status, unclaimed property. There it was. Cold, merciless law. The Yshari were classified as a non-sovereign species, which meant they had no legal rights. Their lives were controlled by those who owned them. His hands clenched into fists. "How did this happen?" he asked, looking at Rayla. "The Yshari are intelligent. You have a homeworld, a culture. Why doesn't the law recognize you as a people?" Rayla sat across from him, her hands resting in her lap. "Long ago, we did have sovereignty," she said, "but our leaders chose peace over war. We refused to fight for territory, for power. The other species of the galaxy saw that as weakness. They took our world, divided our people, and wrote laws to make sure we could never rise again." Alex exhaled slowly. He had seen oppression before, but this was something worse. It was legalized slavery, hidden under complicated laws and old traditions. "Then we'll fight the law," he said. "I'll take your case to the Galactic Tribunal. I'll demand that they recognize your rights." Rayla gave a bitter smile. "And who will listen to you?" "Alex Carter. The tribunal does not care for justice, only for power." Alex wasn't naive. He knew the galaxy was corrupt. But he also knew something else. Humans had changed history before. When humanity first entered the stars, they had been underestimated, ignored. But time and time again, they had fought for their place. He wasn't about to let this fight go. "I'll find a way," he said. Before Rayla could respond, the ship's alarm blared. A warning flashed across the console. "Incoming transmission. Secure channel." Alex tapped the screen. The image of a massive armored figure appeared, Lord Xath. Human. Xath's voice was deep and filled with barely controlled anger. "I warned you not to challenge me." Alex leaned back, unimpressed. "You didn't bid high enough." "That's not my problem." Xath's glowing red eyes narrowed. "She belongs to me. You are nothing but a thief. Return her now, or face the consequences." Alex folded his arms. "You lost a fair auction, Xath. She's not your property anymore." Xath's lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, you misunderstand. I don't need an auction to take what I want." The transmission cut out. A second later, the ship's radar lit up with red signals. 3 Hunter-class interceptors were approaching fast. Rayla stood. "You should have let me go," she said. Alex smiled grimly. "Not a chance." He slammed his fist onto the ship's controls. Engines online. Shields up. Weapons activated. The battle for Rayla's freedom had just begun. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit as Alex Carter gripped the ship's controls. The radar showed 3 Hunter-class interceptors closing in fast. Lord Xath had sent his enforcers to reclaim Rayla, and they weren't here to negotiate. "Hold on," Alex shouted as he pushed the throttle forward. The ship's engines roared to life, launching them away from the spaceport. The Corsair-class transport was not built for combat, but it had speed. And right now, that was their only advantage. Rayla stood behind him, her hands gripping the co-pilot's seat. "They will not let us escape," she said calmly. "Yeah, I figured that," Alex muttered. He tapped the ship's weapons system, bringing up a display of 2 forward blasters and a rear turret. Not much, but enough to fight back if needed. A loud beeping sound filled the cockpit. The enemy ships had locked onto them. The air on Vorlax 9 was thick with the scent of oil, metal, and greed. It was a world of trade where everything had a price. Technology, weapons, resources, and even living beings. Sergeant Alex Carter walked through the grand auction hall, his fists clenched. He had seen many terrible things during his time in the military, but this place disgusted him the most. Rows of cages lined the platform, each holding a different kind of prisoner. Some were criminals sold as workers. Others were war captives, their futures already decided by the highest bidder. But one figure caught his attention immediately. She was sitting in the corner of her cage, wrapped in a deep purple cloak. Her silver-white skin shimmered under the artificial lights, and her dark eyes held a sorrow too deep for words. She was Isheri, a rare and intelligent species, known for their telepathic abilities. The auctioneer, a fat, 4-armed alien with a voice like grinding metal, banged his hammer. "This one is special," he announced. "A Isheri widow, abandoned after her husband's death. She has no master, no home. According to galactic law, she is now considered unclaimed property, and property must be sold." The crowd murmured in excitement. The Isheri were rare outside their own worlds. Their telepathic abilities made them valuable in diplomacy, intelligence work, and even personal service. "Starting bid, 50,000 credits," the auctioneer shouted. A heavy silence followed. Even the wealthy bidders hesitated. The Isheri were powerful, but they were also dangerous. Owning one required control, and no one wanted a rebellious telepath in their hands. Then a voice broke the silence. 100,000 credits. Everyone turned to see the bidder. A tall, armored figure stood near the front. His face was hidden by a golden helmet, but his identity was well known. Lord Seth, a warlord who controlled multiple mining planets. His wealth and cruelty were legendary. The auctioneer grinned. "A fine bid. Do we have 150,000 credits?" Another gasped. A human had spoken. Alex Carter stood tall, his expression hard as steel. He wasn't a rich man. He wasn't a warlord or a businessman, but he was a soldier, a man who had fought for freedom, not for slavery. Lord Seth turned, his glowing red eyes locking onto Alex. "You dare challenge me, human," he growled. "She's not property," Alex said firmly. "She's a person, and she deserves freedom." The crowd whispered. Humans were known for their strong emotions, but few would risk angering someone like Seth. 200,000 credits, Seth said coldly. Alex took a deep breath. He had saved every credit from his military service. He was planning to buy a small ship, start a new life away from war. But looking at the Isheri woman, he knew what he had to do. All of it. The auctioneer blinked. "Excuse me. Every credit I have. 300,000. The hall fell silent. Even Seth seemed surprised. The warlord could have gone higher, but he hesitated. He didn't actually need the Isheri. He just didn't like losing. After a long moment, he let out a low snarl. "Enjoy your purchase, human, but be careful what you fight for." Then he turned and walked away. The auctioneer, looking both thrilled and confused, banged his hammer. "Sold. To the foolish, but rich, human." Alex ignored the laughter and stepped forward. The Isheri woman lifted her gaze, her dark eyes unreadable. "Come on," Alex said, unlocking the cage. "You're free now." But she didn't move. Instead, she spoke for the first time. No, I am not. Alex frowned. What do you mean? She stood slowly, her movements graceful but tired. The laws of this galaxy do not recognize me as a person. You bought me, but that only changes my owner, not my fate. A chill ran through Alex's spine. He had assumed that buying her would mean setting her free, but he had underestimated the cruelty of the system. The Yishari woman stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with sorrow. My name is Rayla, and in the eyes of this galaxy, I am still a prisoner. Alex clenched his fists. This wasn't over. If the law didn't see her as a person, then he would change the law. Even if it meant going against the entire system. Alex Carter led Rayla through the crowded streets of Vorlax 9, but she walked like a shadow, silent and wary. Even though he had won her at the auction, she didn't act like someone who had been saved. She didn't thank him. She didn't even seem relieved. Instead, she carried herself like someone who had lost everything. Alex glanced at her, his mind racing. He had spent every credit he had to buy her freedom, but now he realized something terrible. She wasn't truly free. The law didn't see her as a person. She was still property, just with a different owner. Rayla, he said, trying to break the silence. I don't want to own you. I want to help you. Missile incoming, Rayla warned. Alex's instincts kicked in. He jerked the controls to the left, sending the ship into a sharp dive. The missile shot past them, missing by mere meters before exploding in a bright flash behind them. The comm system crackled to life. A deep, mocking voice filled the cabin. Give up, human, one of the enemy pilots sneered. You're flying junk, and you're outnumbered. Hand over the Ishari, and maybe we won't blast you into dust. Alex smirked. Sorry, I'm a little sentimental about my passengers. With a flick of a switch, he activated the rear turret and fired a burst of energy blasts at the nearest interceptor. The shots clipped the enemy ship's wing, sending it into a brief spiral before it recovered. Nice shot, Rayla said. Don't sound so surprised, Alex replied, dodging another missile. But the odds were against them. The interceptors were faster, better armed, and piloted by ruthless mercenaries. Running forever wasn't an option. Can you fly? Alex asked suddenly. Rayla blinked. I understand the mechanics, but... Good enough. Alex jumped from the pilot's seat and pulled her forward. Take the controls. Just keep us moving. She hesitated but then nodded. She placed her hands on the controls, guiding the ship as Alex sprinted to the gunner's station at the back. Another explosion rocked the ship. The shields were weakening. Alex strapped himself into the turret and aimed at the nearest interceptor. He took a deep breath, then fired. A direct hit. The interceptor's engines burst into flames, sending it spinning into the darkness of space before it exploded. One down, Alex shouted. But the remaining two ships were smarter. Instead of chasing, they fell back, trying to box them in. Alex ran back to the cockpit. We need an escape plan, he said. Rayla's hands moved smoothly over the controls, her eyes scanning the radar. There is an asteroid field nearby, she said. If we reach it, they will not be able to follow easily. Alex grinned. I like the way you think. He grabbed the comm system and broadcasted a signal on all channels. This is Alex Carter of the Corsair 9. I am requesting emergency passage through the Vorlax asteroid belt. A robotic voice responded immediately. Denied. The asteroid belt is off-limits due to high-risk collisions. Yeah, well, we don't have much of a choice, Alex muttered, shutting off the signal. The ship dove toward the asteroid field. Massive rocks drifted in the void, some as large as entire cities. One wrong move, and they'd be nothing but debris. The enemy ships hesitated. Chasing them in would be suicide. Alex smirked. Guess they're not as brave as they act. But then, the comm system buzzed again. Seth's voice filled the cabin. You think you've won, human, he said, almost laughing. You only delay the inevitable. The Ysheri will never be free. You are fighting a war you cannot win. Alex's jaw tightened. He looked at Rayla, who sat silently, staring at the screen. That's what people like you always say, Alex said. And you're always wrong. Seth chuckled. We'll see. Then the signal cut out. For now, they had escaped. But Alex knew this was just the beginning. He turned to Rayla. We need to get to the Galactic Tribunal. If we don't change the law, Seth will never stop hunting you. Rayla nodded. Then we must prepare. The real battle has not yet begun. Alex smiled grimly. No, it hasn't. But I've never lost a fight worth fighting. The ship disappeared into the asteroid field, leaving behind a furious warlord and a galaxy that was about to change forever. The Corsair 9 drifted through the vast asteroid field, its engines running low to avoid detection. Inside the cockpit, Alex Carter leaned over the control panel, scanning for a safe route. The Hunter-class interceptors had pulled back, but he knew they were still out there, waiting for an opportunity. Behind him, Rayla stood silently, watching the swirling rocks outside the window. The dim lights of the cockpit cast shadows across her silver-white skin, making her appear almost ghostly. We can't stay here forever, Alex said, rubbing his forehead. We need to find a way to the Galactic Tribunal before Xath makes his next move. Rayla nodded. But the Tribunal is far from here, and you have spent all your credits to buy me. Alex exhaled sharply. Yeah, don't remind me. He had given up everything for her freedom. And yet, she still wasn't free. A sudden beeping sound filled the cockpit. Alex checked the radar. An incoming message, encrypted and coming from a nearby moon station on the outskirts of the asteroid belt. The name of the sender flashed on the screen. Sloan Varick. Alex's expression hardened. Who is that? Rayla asked, noticing his reaction. Alex sighed. An old contact. A smuggler. A criminal. And the only person in this system who might help us. Rayla studied his face. Do you trust him? Not even a little, Alex admitted. But right now, we don't have much of a choice. He tapped the controls, opening the message. Sloan Varick. Heard you made some enemies, Carter. You always were good at making trouble. Meet me at Titan's Rest. We need to talk. Alex sat back, thinking. Titan's Rest was a lawless moon station hidden in the asteroid belt, a place where fugitives, bounty hunters, and black market traders did business. It was dangerous, but if Sloan was offering help, there had to be a reason. What do you think? Alex asked Rayla. She closed her eyes briefly, as if sensing something unseen. He is not trustworthy, but he does not want you dead. Yet. Alex smirked. That's the closest thing to good news I've had all day. He set a course for Titan's Rest. The station loomed ahead, built into the jagged rock of the moon. It was old, rusted, and barely held together by patchwork repairs. The docking bay was filled with all kinds of ships. Some looked stolen, others belonged to bounty hunters looking for their next job. As Alex and Rayla stepped off the Corsair 9, a foul mix of smoke and oil filled the air. The marketplace was alive with the sounds of alien voices bargaining, laughing, and threatening each other over illegal deals. Stay close, Alex muttered. Rayla didn't reply, but she moved beside him, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. Sloan Varick was waiting at a small, dimly lit cantina. He was a rough-looking man with short gray hair and a cybernetic eye that glowed red. He leaned back in his chair, a smug grin on his face. Carter, Sloan said, waving them over. Still alive, I see. Barely, Alex said, sitting across from him. Rayla remained standing, watching Sloan carefully. Sloan glanced at her, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned her. So, this is the famous Ysheri widow everyone's after. He chuckled. Kath really wants her back. The bounty on your head's just doubled. Alex tensed. I don't plan on giving her up. Yeah, I figured, Sloan said, smirking. So, what's your plan, Carter? Because right now, you're out of money, out of allies, and running out of time. Alex leaned forward. I need transport to the Galactic Tribunal. You have connections. You can get us there. Sloan laughed. That's a suicide mission. The Tribunal is corrupt. Even if you get there, they won't listen to you. Alex clenched his fists. Then I'll make them listen. Sloan studied him for a moment. Then his grin faded. You're serious, aren't you? Dead serious. Sloan sighed, rubbing his chin. All right, I might have a way. But it's risky. Everything's risky, Alex said. Tell me. Sloan lowered his voice. There's a Union diplomat passing through this system. He has a secure transport ship heading directly to the tribunal. If you can get on that ship, you'll have a safe ride to your destination. Alex frowned. And how exactly do we get on that ship? Sloan's grin returned. That's the fun part. You're gonna steal diplomatic clearance codes from a Union officer staying right here on Titan's Rest. Alex leaned back, exhaling. This just kept getting worse. And what do you get out of this? Alex asked. Sloan's grin widened. Let's just say, having someone owe me a favor is worth more than credits. Alex didn't like it, but they had no other options. He looked at Rayla. What do you think? She met his gaze. The path is dangerous, but it is the only one we have. Alex nodded. Fine. We'll do it. Sloan chuckled. That's the spirit. He tossed a small data device across the table. Everything you need to know is on here. But be careful. This Union officer, he's not some random soldier. He's got powerful friends. Alex caught the device. Wouldn't be the first time. As they left the cantina, Rayla spoke softly. This man, Sloan, he hides his true motives. Alex sighed. Yeah, I know. But for now, we play along. Because if they didn't get those clearance codes, they would never make it to the tribunal alive. The neon lights of Titan's Rest flickered as Alex, Carter, and Rayla moved through the narrow, crowded alleyways of the station. The air smelled of rust, spilled fuel, and the faint scent of trouble. Alex checked the small data device Sloan Varick had given him. Their target was Captain Ilias Drayton, a Union officer with high-level clearance codes. He was staying at the Iron Fang Hotel, a high-security complex on the east side of the station. If they could steal his diplomatic access codes, they could board the transport ship heading to the Galactic Tribunal. How heavily guarded is he? Rayla asked, walking beside Alex. Alex sighed. Sloan's data says he has 2 bodyguards, an advanced security system in his suite, and access to a private escape shuttle. He smirked. So, easy. Rayla gave him a flat look. You humans have a strange definition of easy. Alex chuckled. Yeah, we do. They reached the Iron Fang Hotel, a tall metallic tower with armed guards stationed at the entrance. The security here was tighter than Alex had hoped, but that just meant they had to be smarter. He turned to Rayla. We need a distraction. She tilted her head. I can create one. Alex raised an eyebrow. How? Rayla didn't answer. Instead, she closed her eyes, and for a brief moment, Alex felt a strange sensation, like the air itself had become heavier. A few meters away, a group of alien traders suddenly started shouting at each other. One pushed another, knocking over a crate of expensive goods. The guards at the entrance immediately turned their attention to the fight, moving in to break it up. Alex grinned. Neat trick. Rayla didn't reply, but there was the smallest hint of amusement in her expression. With the guards distracted, they slipped inside. The hotel lobby was quiet and elegant, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. A security droid floated by, scanning guests as they entered. Alex checked Sloan's intel again. Drayton is on the 17th floor, room 1703. His access codes are stored in a personal datapad inside his suite. How do we reach him? Rayla asked. Alex smirked. We improvise. He spotted a hotel staff member entering a maintenance door and quickly followed, pulling Rayla inside with him. They found themselves in a service elevator meant for employees only. Alex pressed the button for the 17th floor. Now we just need to get past his guards, his security, and steal the datapad without getting caught. Rayla glanced at him. Again, your definition of easy concerns me. Alex chuckled. Relax. I've done worse. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. They stepped out cautiously. The hallway was silent, with only a few soft lights illuminating the path. Room 1703 was just ahead. Alex reached for his pistol, just in case. Stay behind me. Rayla nodded. They reached the door, but as expected, it was locked by an advanced biometric scanner. Alex pulled out a small hacking tool and connected it to the keypad. The device blinked as it worked, bypassing the security system. Come on, Alex muttered. A soft click. The door unlocked. They slipped inside. The room was lavish, with expensive furniture and a grand window overlooking the station. On a glass table near the bed, Alex spotted the datapad. Bingo, he whispered. But just as he reached for it, a gun cocked behind his head. Nice try, Carter, a deep voice growled. Alex froze. Slowly, he turned his head to see Captain Elias Drayton, standing near the entrance, his blaster aimed directly at Alex's skull. Behind him, two massive bodyguards entered the room, weapons drawn. Alex sighed. Of course, you'd have backup. Drayton smirked. You think I wouldn't expect someone to come after my clearance codes? You're a fool. Alex kept his hands raised. All right, let's talk about this. Drayton shook his head. You don't understand, Carter. I know why you're here. You want to get that Ishari widow to the tribunal. You think you can change the law. He chuckled darkly. The Union won't allow that. The Ishari are too valuable. Rayla's expression darkened, but she stayed silent. Drayton gestured to his guards. Kill him. Take the girl back to Xath. The bodyguards stepped forward. Alex acted instantly. He grabbed a nearby bottle from the table and smashed it against Drayton's wrist, knocking the blaster aside. Rayla moved faster than lightning. She ducked under a guard's attack, twisted his arm, and sent him crashing into the wall. Alex tackled the second guard, grabbing his blaster and firing a quick shot. The man fell, unconscious. Drayton, clutching his injured wrist, scrambled for his gun, but Rayla raised her hand, and suddenly, the air shimmered. Drayton froze, his entire body unable to move. His eyes widened. What are you doing? Rayla's voice was calm but firm. You say my people are valuable, but we are not your property. Alex grabbed the datapad from the table. Looks like we're done here. He turned to Rayla. Let's go. She released her hold on Drayton, and he collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. Alex and Rayla sprinted out of the room. Alarms blared across the hotel as they rushed toward the maintenance elevator. The moment they stepped in, Alex pressed the button for the docking bay. As the doors closed, he let out a breath. That went well. Rayla raised an eyebrow. You almost died. Alex smirked. Yeah, but I didn't. She shook her head but said nothing. They had the access codes. Now, they just needed to reach the diplomatic transport before Xath's forces caught up to them. The real fight for freedom was about to begin. The docking bay of Titan's Rest was a chaotic place, filled with ships of all sizes, smugglers, bounty hunters, and merchants arguing over deals. Neon signs flickered above repair stations, and the air smelled of burnt fuel and machine oil. Alex, Carter, and Rayla moved quickly through the crowd, their stolen diplomatic clearance codes safely stored in the small data chip Alex had hidden in his jacket. We have to get to that transport ship before Drayton alerts the authorities, Alex muttered. Rayla nodded, her silver-white skin glowing faintly under the station lights. Where is it docked? Alex glanced at the security terminal ahead. Bay 12A, not far, but if Drayton's men are after us, it won't be easy. As if on cue, a voice echoed through the station's announcement system. Attention, all security forces. Be on the lookout for a human male and a Yashari female. They are to be detained immediately. Suspects are armed and dangerous. Alex clenched his jaw. Well, that was fast. Rayla's eyes darkened. We must hurry. They pushed forward, blending into the crowd. Bounty hunters and mercenaries glanced at the alert screens, their interest piqued by the promise of a reward. Some even reached for their weapons. Alex grabbed Rayla's hand and pulled her into a side corridor, just as a pair of Union security officers rushed past. Stay close, he whispered. The path to freedom. The docking bay doors to 12A were just ahead. A large, white diplomatic transport sat on the landing pad, its engines humming softly. The ship's crew moved about, unaware of the danger approaching. We made it, Alex breathed. But just as they stepped forward, a group of armed bounty hunters blocked their path. The leader, a tall, scarred man with cybernetic eyes, smirked. Carter, you've got a price on your head. Alex sighed. Of course I do. The bounty hunter aimed his blaster, hand over the Yashari, and I might let you walk away. Rayla stepped forward, her voice calm. I am not a possession to be given away. The bounty hunter laughed. You are property. The law says so. Alex's grip tightened around his pistol. Yeah, then maybe it's time to change the law. The bounty hunters opened fire. Alex dove behind a stack of cargo crates, pulling Rayla down with him. Blaster shots exploded against the metal, sparks flying everywhere. Any ideas? Rayla asked. Alex peeked over the crates. Yeah, run. He grabbed a small flash grenade from his belt and tossed it over the crates. A bright burst of light blinded the bounty hunters, giving them a few seconds to move. Go, Alex shouted. They sprinted toward the transport ship, dodging stray shots. The ship's boarding ramp was still open, but a security checkpoint blocked the way. 2 Union guards stood watch. Alex cursed under his breath. We don't have time for this. Rayla took a deep breath, her eyes glowing softly. The guards suddenly froze in place, their expressions confused. Their weapons lowered slightly, as if their minds were clouded. Alex raised an eyebrow. Okay, that's new. Rayla exhaled. It will not last long. Move quickly. They rushed past the guards and up the boarding ramp. Inside, the ship's crew members turned, startled by their sudden arrival. A diplomatic officer, dressed in a crisp white uniform, stepped forward. Who are you? He demanded. This is a secure transport. Alex pulled out the data chip and plugged it into the ship's terminal. The screen flashed green as the stolen clearance codes authenticated their entry. Ambassador's orders, Alex said smoothly. We're supposed to be on this flight. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Fine. We're about to take off. Find a seat. Alex sighed in relief. They had made it. Rayla looked at him. Are we truly safe now? Alex shook his head. Not yet. Because he knew Kath wouldn't give up that easily. The final threat. The transport ship's engines roared, and the massive vessel lifted off, escaping the station's gravitational pull. For the first time in hours, Alex allowed himself to relax. Rayla sat beside him, her dark eyes watching the stars beyond the window. You risked everything for me, she said softly. Alex met her gaze. Yeah, I did. Why? He hesitated. Then, with a small smile, he said, because sometimes doing the right thing is worth the risk. Rayla studied him for a moment, then nodded. But their moment of peace didn't last long. A warning alarm blared across the ship. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Incoming enemy ship. It's a Yashari war cruiser. Alex's stomach dropped. Xath. A massive black warship appeared on the view screen, moving fast. A communication signal came through. Xath's cold, emotionless voice filled the cabin. Surrender the widow, or be destroyed. The ship's crew turned to Alex and Rayla, their faces filled with fear. We can't fight them, the officer shouted. Alex clenched his fists. He had come too far to give up now. He looked at Rayla. Do you trust me? She nodded. Alex turned to the crew. Then let's give Xath a fight he won't forget. Because if they didn't win this battle, their fight for freedom would be over before it even began. The transport ship shook violently as the Yshari war cruiser fired a warning shot. The crew scrambled in panic, alarms flashing red across the control panels. Alex tightened his grip on his blaster as Xath's cold voice echoed through the ship's communication system. This is your final warning. Surrender the widow, or be destroyed. Rayla sat quietly, her expression unreadable. She knew Xath was serious. He would rather kill her than let her reach the Galactic Tribunal. Alex glanced at the ship's pilot, who looked terrified. Can we outrun them? The pilot shook his head. Not a chance. Their ship is faster, stronger, and heavily armed. Alex cursed under his breath. They needed a new plan, and fast. The diplomatic officer turned to them. We can't risk everyone's lives for one person. He pointed at Rayla. Maybe we should just. Alex cut him off, his voice sharp. No, we don't give her up. The officer hesitated. But Alex stepped forward, eyes burning with determination. If we give her up, what does that say about us? That we're okay with slavery. That we let people like Xath decide who is free and who is property. He shook his head. Not today. The crew fell silent. Some looked afraid, but others nodded. Rayla turned to Alex. What do we do? Alex grinned. We fight. A desperate plan. Alex studied the war cruiser on the view screen. It was a massive, black vessel, built for combat. There was no way their unarmed diplomatic transport could win in a straight fight. But they didn't need to fight. They just needed to buy time. He turned to the pilot. What's the closest jump point? The pilot quickly checked the navigation system. There's a jump gate 3 minutes away, but we won't make it before they. Before he could finish, another explosion rocked the ship. Sparks flew from the ceiling. They're locking weapons, the officer yelled. Alex turned to Rayla. Can you do that thing again? The one where you made those guards freeze. She hesitated. It is difficult. And against someone as strong as Xath, it may not work. Alex sighed. Then we need another distraction. His mind raced. Think, Carter, think. Then it hit him. What about the ship's cargo? Alex asked. Do we have anything explosive? The crew hesitated. Then one of the engineers spoke up. We have emergency fuel cells in storage. If we eject them and detonate them. Alex snapped his fingers. It might blind their sensors long enough for us to escape. The pilot nodded. It's risky, but it could work. Alex turned to Rayla. You ready? She nodded. He grabbed the intercom and spoke to the crew. Listen up. We're not going down without a fight. Get to your stations and prepare for emergency maneuvers. We're making a run for that jump gate. The crew rushed into action. The escape. The war cruiser fired another shot, and the transport ship barely dodged in time. The shields were weak, and one more direct hit would destroy them. Alex held on as the pilot angled the ship sharply, heading straight for the jump gate. Now, Alex shouted. The engineer ejected the fuel cells into space. A few seconds later, Alex fired his blaster into the controls, overloading the ignition system. Boom! A massive explosion erupted behind them, filling space with a blinding white flash. For a moment, the war cruiser lost visual tracking. This is our chance, the pilot yelled. Hold on. The transport ship surged forward, engines burning at maximum power. The jump gate was just ahead. Alex turned to Rayla. Xath will try to stop us. Be ready. She nodded, closing her eyes in concentration. Just as they neared the gate, the war cruiser recovered. Tath's voice came through again, filled with rage. "You cannot escape me." The war cruiser fired its main cannon, a powerful energy blast meant to destroy the ship completely. Rayla's eyes snapped open, glowing with bright silver light. She raised her hands, and suddenly, the air around them shimmered. The massive energy blast veered off course, missing the transport ship by mere inches. Alex stared in shock. That was incredible. Rayla exhaled, looking exhausted. "I cannot do it again." Alex nodded. "You won't have to." Because at that moment, the transport ship reached the jump gate and vanished into hyperspace. They had escaped. A new future. The ship emerged from hyperspace near the Galactic Tribunal Station, a massive space station orbiting a bright blue planet. They had made it. Rayla looked out the window, her expression unreadable. "I never thought I would live to see this place." Alex smiled. "Well, you're here now, and soon the tribunal will hear your case." The pilot sent a diplomatic signal to the station. Within minutes, a message came through. "This is the Galactic Tribunal. You are cleared for docking. Please prepare for arrival." The crew cheered. Alex turned to Rayla. "This is it. Your chance to prove that your people deserve freedom." She met his gaze. "Our chance," she corrected. He chuckled. "Yeah, our chance." As the transport ship docked, Alex felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Because today, they hadn't just escaped. They had fought back. And tomorrow, they would change the galaxy.